Hey, good evening, folks. How's everyone? Brain dead, hammered? All right. I have one submission and one acknowledgement to make before I kick off, right? The submission is I should thank all of these guys here from ExpertTalks to have my session as the last, because it has a segue from everything what the speakers said in the morning, right? So starting from Dr. Kamath, Lalit, Sandeep, Sunil, everyone, Neha, Akash, and last but not the least, Piyush, right? It helps me build the horizontal stack for what IoT is all about. So without much ado, and the acknowledgement is for all of you. I mean, if I were in your seat, being locked in a room, irrespective of the great food, tea, coffee, and still being alive for a 5 o'clock session, and in an unsatiable appetite for more, kudos, guys. And the only ask from you guys is there's no dumb question. So I have no intention to complete all my slides. I never do, to be honest with you. I just build a lot of slides. We can park anywhere. We can talk on any stack component you would like to, right? The intent is just to broaden out what IoT is. How many of you come from telecom, software, / DevOps, / NetOps? Just a quick show of hands. So I get a sense. I was watching most of the hands, so it's good for me. Okay, all right. And here's the gratifying factor. Nothing in IoT is standardized, really, right? So it's all up for grabs. And that's why I would ideally like to structure my landscape. You know, this didn't take long, so I just thought my landscape should look something like that. I start with an architecture. I start with the platform, the horizontal stack. Last but not the least, I wrap it up with what are the industry bodies, right? And it wouldn't be unfair to say there are as many industry bodies in IoT dipping their hands, feet, and whatnot, more than the number of people in this room. So we have so many industry bodies trying to ratify IoT from all aspects. So whether it's, how many of you heard about Industry 4.0 or industrial IoT? Yeah, absolutely. So that's the digital manufacturing world which are trying to spawn a new world of IoT. And I just thought I'll put a few linkages of industrial IoT and smart cities, right? Why? Obviously, because it's the cool thing happening on this side of the world. That's one. I get the opportunity and the privilege to contribute to a few smart cities around the world through this engagement in Cisco. And Jaipur is one pilot we're doing. We finished Kansas, we finished Barcelona, Dubai. So not entirety, but that's a privilege. You tend to work across so many knowledge enablement partners. So as I rightly said, it's a wild west out there for IoT, right? You would not really, it is not like the way we started with our IPv4 journey and it was all standardized in a 7-layer stack. There's a lot of stakeholders. There's a lot of stakeholders for the sake of, and the premise and the context of this discussion, I would say humbly, try to slot your energies, your expertise into where you can contribute, right? So if I may borrow from what Neha had said, what problem are you trying to solve? What use case are you trying to build? Most important, are you trying to solve the right problem? I mean, if you want to put an IPv6 patch on a dog or a cat's collar, hoping somebody would like to trace their cats and dogs in the next 4 years, God help you, right? That's not an IoT use case you want to develop, right? So one of the places where we often see moving parts, things, or anybody from an industrial world here, I'm not, but anyone with the instrumentation, mechanical, electromechanical, oh yeah, I see a few hands, good. As we call OT, right? So this operational technology flexing its muscles for 90 odd years since the advent of industrial manufacturing, and now entering the IT world, right? So it's not a question of who bats first, but IT and OT coming together. I believe that is the secret sauce which binds digital manufacturing a lot. So make sure you look at what key problems are you trying to solve. Right? So Neha talked about this, a design thinking, definitely you have to build that approach. So irrespective of whether it's a GE, a Google, an Apple, a Cisco, developing a solution, one of the central aspects is this where you see value? I mean, what's the point if you capture data, transform it, normalize it, right? If you remember the stack which Piyush had, and that kind of helps me build a segue for big data. So the real value, if IoT was a coin, if you flip a coin up, the other side of the coin is really about insights. Are you getting the insights for the industry vertical for which you're developing this use case. If you're not, chances are you're developing something which is already there in a different form, right? So there is no IoT digital manufacturing stack per se. It's a horizontal stack. Depending on which company you talk to, it will keep on changing, right? So I took the liberty of just condensing 10 slides into one, right? Partially makes my job easier, but if you watch this, and I know you can't, but hopefully the guys at the back can look at that, but watch the concentric circles, right? So horizontal, like security, if you guys are into endpoint security as a software layer, right? It's a horizontal stack. Like you can build IoT stacks this way, but security has to be there across every place, right? From the docs caller all the way to the cloud and apps. So device management, data management. As you watch these circles build up, each of this will gravitate towards two things. One is what we call as the AEP, or the App Enablement Platform, which kind of has gravitated, normalized, mined the data in such a way on which you can develop apps further. So smart city manifestation would be one such brilliant way in which, for example, a Jaipur may embark on a journey of women's safety as as centric for it. For example, they have taken, by the way, at the risk of sounding presumptuous, women's safety as a top-notch problem. So Jaipur, Ajmer, Pune also has it in the charts, and we can talk on that later, post the session. But what can light poles do? What can a series of light poles on a 5-kilometer road as things, when they start talking to each other, solve this problem? So when you work outwards from this, okay, so what can they do, right? So keep this parked in your mind. I do have a similar slide, but for a light pole, and how we can go forward and do that. And there's a bevy of players. There's a bevy of connectors, data management guys. There's a bevy of orchestrators. There's a bevy of, how many of you heard about software-defined networking or NFVI? Anyone? Quick show of hands. Okay. So that's one place which is also now strongly being heralded as the future with 5G just knocking on our doors now. So for this side of the world, India has announced its 5G plans just 2.5 weeks ago in the India Mobile World Congress. Any guesses who's going to test 5G first in India? Yeah. Sorry, stupid question, but yeah. So Mukesh Bhai has probably announced this, and he plans to take this at great levels. So if you look at all these circles, right? So the app enablement, the data orchestration, the SDN, NFVI, everything gravitated towards one thing. I take this thing, I connect this thing, I collect data from this thing, I analyze data from this thing, and I built an app enablement platform on this, and suddenly everything which you connect becomes a repeatable service offering. So a big play for everyone, including the Googles, the Apples, the IBMs, and every company you heard, if I may use the word, is connected services. So you look at a light pole, you put some amazing sensors with multi-fusion sensor technology from the Marvels, from the Broadcoms, and suddenly you start monetizing as repeatable, recurring, subscription-based services. These endpoints can generate revenue for you. And let's quickly look at what's the challenge currently. Like honestly, the Wi-Fi in your home, everyone understands, is unlicensed, right? LTE or any 3G standard, 4G standard, or even CDMA standard comes from a licensed world. Right? So how do you connect this so-called myriad and billions of things? Do you connect them on a licensed way, wireless way? I hope everyone understands they have to be wireless, right? I mean, ever looked at a road which has a AC or a DC cable below it? No, I don't think so, right? If you want to tap the vehicles going on a speed breaker or a hump, you need to put a pole which has a wireless connectivity. That sensor will probably going to transmit 1/4 of a megabit per day. So it's not always connected, it's just always ready, right? So the apps have to be written in that respect. So how many of you heard about IFTTT, the if, then, that clause? Yeah, so those are the event trigger conditions we are looking at in IoT, right? If an event happens, then only generate, right? So 1/4 of a megabit, 250 kilobits per second needs to go out once every hour so that My friend knows that I've entered my community in my car because the first speed breaker gets even notified, just like a MyGate app telling you about visitors. So there are lots of opportunities here. Somebody touched this. I think Piyush also touched this. I'm just using a term called data in motion, or DEMO as we call it. It has its own schema, triple D as we call it, or 3D. So what's data in motion versus data at rest? What do you really need to capture? What do you need to store? And most important, where do you need to store? Right? If you remember, Piyush made this in a very nice way. I'll just save data. I'm producing it anyway, so I'll save data. Now in IoT, the big question becomes, where do you save it? If a speed breaker and 45 of those in Pune city are generating data, and you have an edge layer, would you store it closer to the source? Would you store it somewhere at the intermediate layer? Or would you rather just store it more on the cloud layer where it can be there, in probably yottabytes? That's the big question, right? So again, the same traditional models which we saw 19 to 20 years ago when V4 was adventing, or IPv4 for service providers, we are now looking at IoT passing through the same challenges, whether it's optical, wireless, mobility. A lot of technologies are coming here. People have various choices, but again, in the absence of a centralized vision or a core problem-solving approach, you often tend to dilute all the approaches you have. So we are seeing the vestiges of that, but data in motion vis-a-vis data in rest. If you are going to write your schemas in XML for data in motion, you clearly differentiate. What we call in IoT is a mini cloud layer, which is closer to the ground. So having 25 sensors on each of these tables in this room, which measures the temperature of each of the bottles, right? And having just an edge layer, or we also call that as a fog layer. By we, I mean the industry. So W3C has invented this fog layer concept. Cisco, IBM, we like this concept, which means connect, collect, analyze closer to the source. Why send data all the way there? If you've seen two-wheelers in Pune, and if they understand this concept, we can ride without a helmet, we can jump red lights, and let the data go on the cloud, and after 6 seconds it gets analyzed. By the time that guy's probably reached home or parked himself somewhere, right? So you don't want that. You want data in probably 1/4 of a second for a traffic offender to be captured closer to the source. By that approach, I mean the fog layer, right? So in case you hear about the word fog, obviously it's a nice fuzzy marketing word, and it differentiates yourself from the big word which is cloud, which in my humble opinion is it's ending. We pretty much sounded the death knell for the cloud. So everything in IT is now about workload optimization, location, application movement, right? I have a slide on that as a takeaway, but don't want to steal the thunder. How many of you have seen the 3V slide? Who talked about big data again? Piyush, I think. Anyone remembers the 3 V's? Volume? Got it. Perfect, perfect. Right? If I may just put them on the numerator and just put another big V as a denominator, I would say that big V would be value, right? If I'm not getting value from this, so any two of those 3 V's are not going to make sense. If I need to store the volume, the variety, you can even have a 4th V if you like as a veracity. Do I really capture the right data at the right place? So we often call that inverted pyramid, right? So everything floats around as knowledge. There's so much data and knowledge and information everywhere. What's the nugget? What is the wisdom you are trying to extract from this data? So far, the IETF, the data guys, and the ITU, the erstwhile voice guys, and the OIF, the optical guys, and you can go on and on, pretty much have looked at, if you look at the left part of this slide, yeah, this one. So they have tend to develop standards on this. And just when we thought this is maturing to be a real OSI kind of a model for IoT, another storm in the room kicked off. Should we go for license versus unlicensed? So a lot of things throwing up. But this is a cool way to imagine if you're developing anything in the IoT space, this is where your edge is, right? So your routers, your switches, your wireless controllers, everything, whatever they connect, they collect, analyze, and that's when you manifest as an app. So it's a nice 3 to 4 layer stack if you want to visualize IoT as a stack. We do have time for questions at the end, right? So, okay, so I can take questions now or later. Yeah. Any questions at this point of time? We are just covering a lot of technologies, but feel free. I don't want to rush through them. Yeah, sure. Anything you have in mind? Any comment, feedback?
Great. Maybe a bit off track. One of the key questions that I keep getting debated on is the kind of security, the personal security that IoT faces, right? With all of these devices getting connected, a lot of information is going out there onto the cloud, onto various servers, government, non-government, which as users do not have control over. So what are the key developments or key thought processes that are coming up in that area to protect information, personal information of individuals, yet give them the kind of capabilities which can transform lives?
Okay, okay. Fair question, very potent question, if I may say so, right? And that's why I think I did mention this. Security is across all layers. There is no option, even if you look at this 6-layer stack. The reason security is not there because it's at each layer, right? So very, very well and a potent point raised. I would say the traditional model of security, without going into industries, has always been see and repair, which is more reactive and predictive. For IoT, the new paradigm, my friend, which is now is the BDA approach, as we call it. It's called as before the threat, during the threat, and after the threat. And obviously with cloud and virtualization coming in, the moment you connect 500,000 sensor points, the impact of each of them being your future threat vector has to be analyzed even before they actually connect. So if I may use a very dumb word, which is called as simulation. For example, if I simulate all of this huge chandeliers connecting on an existing building area network here, it has to be assessed before. Because all you need to know is, are they using some protocol? I'm just throwing a word here like BACnet, right, which is a popular building automation protocol. You have to assess if any of these light fixtures can be compromised by a person outside with a mobile data phone or a Wi-Fi connection. And if yes, stop the connection. So in other words, the right technical word for that is you enforce it even before you actually connect. And that's where we see a paradigm shift. I think this answer will not be complete if I don't say there's such immense work to be done in that space. I'll just use the word IoT security or IoT threat defense. It's not even funny, and there's so little awareness of it. You read any Wired magazine, you'll find people stopping cars and connected cars, people compromising German nuclear reactors, and I think the reactor guys knew 3.5 months after it that it was actually compromised. By that time, I don't know what happened, but yeah, so amazingly huge work to be done there. Yeah, and we'll talk more on security room. Okay. Cool. Oh, sure.
Oh, you talked about data storage at various layers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Edge, fog, or at the cloud.
Just nomenclatures, please use. Yeah.
No, so basically it depends, right? And what are you going to do with that data and how the data should be reactive?
Okay.
Considering various analytics, it could be descriptive.
I'll repeat it for you guys. Yeah. Okay.
It could be descriptive, predictive, or prescriptive, right?
Yeah.
So locality of data should be relevant in that context.
Yes, valid question. In case you didn't, in case he was not audible, his question was at each of these layers, if I'm talking about data storage, right? And if I technically break it down, I'm talking about compute, networking, storage, analytics at each layer. Is it descriptive? Is it predictive? Is it prescriptive? It could be anything, right? Two things help us, obviously. How many of you have heard about the Moore's law? Don't need to tell you, right? Okay. So yeah, everyone's heard about it. So the power of computing. So the price performance of computing is going down. Probably the next iPhone is probably going to have 5 and 2. Who knows, right? So you probably for the same price point, you're going to get more computing power, more storage power. I do not know how much, but a lot of this split, if today it is 50-50, it could just be 70-30 or even 80-20. But that decision, what should I store here and how much and in what way, will always be done in software. Hence, I mean, the whole of IoT success story really revolves around, again, I'm using a word which is thrown away very loosely, but softwareization is what every app enablement guy like Cisco, like Google, we use it often. How much am I softwareizing these layers? So that if I'm using network function virtualization here, which means on any standard x86 platform, I just know Pune had floods, and I just want to augment my computing, power. In probably 20 minutes, I can spin up that much computing power on the fly. On the fly, the government can get that much computing power, storage power, networking power. It is possible. So there's no magnitude I can give you your answer, but I can say it's very much possible, and the key to unlock that is going to be softwareization. All right? Okay, I'll quickly jump. Okay, sure. I have no problem.
What did you mean when you said home Wi-Fi networks are unlicensed?
The Wi-Fi as a protocol is on unlicensed spectrum. So you don't pay to anyone, right? You just use 2.45 gigs. That's unlicensed. Whereas when you use your phone, Reliance or Airtel Bharti pay something for 900 megahertz. That's the only difference. And I have one slide on license and unlicensed also. Okay, so any of you guys, whichever capacity you work for enterprises or service providers, should be familiar with one word. If he or she is your client, any SP providers, right? The biggest battle, how much fiber optic cables or how much network does WhatsApp own? Does Instagram own? Does anybody own? Zilch, right? How much network does Uber, Ola own? Zilch. So they are really like the OTP guys, right? The OTP is not the SMS you get when you make a banking transaction. We call them over-the-top providers, right? So it's a huge battle. They are like leeches on your network, the right way to describe them. But they make the most money. Amazon makes the most money without digging half a mile for fiber. So here you have someone who's invested, $12 billion in wiring a whole country or a nation or half a continent. And here you have over-the-top providers doing that. So this slide is for those people who are servicing service providers. When you talk to your clients, the SP to KP journey has to be embraced, right? The KP here being just knowledge partner or a knowledge development partner. So this is the paradigm shift we are seeing for service providers or telcos or OSPs or CSPs or ISPs or MSPs or whatever SPs comes to your mind, XSPs, right? And which means you have to start talking to them in what problems are you trying to solve. Often the most simplest words are most easily forgotten, right? We have jargonized technology in such a way, and we talk about soup of these protocols, but often when we talk to a banking client, and if all the CTO wants to hear, for example, if Chanda Kochar wants just to increase home loan penetration for ICICI Bank, we go and throw a slam book of protocols, slam book of APIs at her without understanding her basic question. In Diwali, she wants to host video services. How do you translate that vision on a network? Just giving an example, right? So if you look at this pyramid, it's a nice way to imagine, right? So data, information, knowledge, wisdom being the place where enterprise or SP can obviously monetize and really achieve the business benefits, right? Quick look, because we said smart cities, I just thought we'll look at, everyone familiar here with the Pune smart city or the India smart city evolution, acceleration, hyper duper marketing, and the whole channel news bites traffic which is generated, which is good anyway, it doesn't matter, right? All the networks are happy because everyone's debating, everyone wants to have an opinion on this, right? One thing no one gets is a smart city was never meant to be a static solution, right? So here you have one size fits all is never ever going to work. What Jaipur wants, what Ajmer wants, what Pune wants, what Thane wants, what New Bombay wants, even if it is the same, when they say it's traffic optimization, catching traffic offenders, GPS on buses, is entirely through a different way, right? So yeah, the connecting blocks may look the same, but the way they will manifest as citizen apps is going to be different. So you're obviously going to need and look at service providers IoT platform. So if you are someone who is keen in this area, please realize the importance of understanding the use cases. Just because you think you can develop an app-enabled platform, and that includes me, I'm just being presumptuous here, so pardon my statement. go and listen. I mean, I think the fifth takeaway from Neha's was always just spend 1 hour per fortnight just listening to a customer. What exactly would you like? How would you like your buses to come? Would you like video analytics as well? Would you like someone WhatsApping pothole pictures? How do you want that? What happens to the pothole after 2 weeks? And all that drama and all those questions have to be funneled into a dogma, schema, and then an API. So if you look at a smart city IoT platform, two things will emerge with you. The user requirement itself will change, guaranteed, especially if it's a government body, right? Because by the time you have gone and sold your use case or even convinced them that this is the way GPS on buses will work, people standing there will exactly know bus number 25 comes in 25 seconds. He or she has spoken to someone in Singapore and Australia and figured out that they want some more improvisation, customization, right? So open, extensible framework is what will get you there. So whether it's a smart transportation for a Department of Transport in Tennessee, whether it's for New York Port Authority, this keeps on changing. So it's not one size fits all. That's the first dogma you have to break. And the second is build, develop, and sit down is going to go away. Instead, it's going to be build, develop, and wait for more. He or she, as a city authority, is going to come back to you and ask you to develop more on it. There's not been a single smart city deployment, to the best of what I know, and there's no ISO standard for this, which has been just static for more than 6 months, right? So, and again, there is no ISO, there is only one body which governs smart cities globally. A few of you can Google it if you're interested. And there are just indicators. So there is no ISO 27000. There is a ISO 37120 spawned by like-minded people like you. It's called as World Council for City Data, and they define indicators, 16 to 20 indicators, which you have to fulfill, and then you get rankings like bronze, gold, silver, platinum. There's no single city which fits into platinum. So if there's one city which says, hey, I live in a smart city, even if they are fulfilling all the indicators, chances are they're slipping on some. So that's why I said the market is huge, it's open, and it's least understood by the application developers, by the platform developers, and even by the connectors or the service providers. So the path to platform journey, or if I may use the whole city itself, right? City, citizens, things, denizens, pets, no matter what you can think of, the whole city and all its denizens becomes like a huge sensor. And your app enablement platform of the city has to service that. That's the broader outlook you go, and then you go deep diving down. And then to your point, my friend, at each layer, what am I doing for security? If I'm getting my birth and death certificates, the moment my child is born, on the cloud, on the web, am I putting my threat vectors later? Oh, I'll figure out how to, basically take care of this cloud data. Not going to happen. By the time you figure out you need to do it, someone else has hacked into it. So while there is IoT, there is IOH, the Internet of Hackers, right? So don't ever, do a disservice to your solution by not thinking about them. Threat vectors before, during, and after are always going to challenge you. Okay, I put some terms there. Again, not to dazzle you with jargons, but if any of you guys are interested, how many of you heard about LANs and WANs, roughly, the erstwhile? So for IoT, the access word is LPWA, just in case. So you asked about home, so it's called as low power wireless access. So two things, right? It will always demand low power. Low power is the main, because you can't put a AC/DC cable out there on a traffic pole. That's one, and it has to be wireless. Any guesses? Will it run on TCP/IP version 4 or TCP/IP version 6? Probably 6, surely 6. How many of you say probably 6? Okay. How many of you say has to be 6? How many of you say both, dual stack? Okay, those are the guys who get the smart city projects. It will have to be dual stack for some time, but largely the move is towards 6. For those who are interested, just Google for 6, the number 6, LO, 6-low WPAN. So that's the standard bodies, which stands for version 6, low power wireless access, all, this alphabet soup of protocols of things, connecting to your nearest access point is defined by that. So they are writing a physical layer, a media access layer, and then a networking layer, which is going to be again on V6, and the transport session is where we come in, all of us guys, right? And then making sure the application is in line with it. So a suggested definition for a smart city platform is going to be on a universal platform, absolutely like a horizontal platform. So some words you might hear a lot. I'm just going to give that as a segue so that you can Google and form your discoveries. All this session is just about discoveries and inquiries, right? I'm not here to, again, as I said, dazzle you with concepts or something. I want you to go ahead and make your journey here. So GE's Predict solution, which is considered now the benchmark for digital manufacturing, that's awesome. We have obviously Microsoft, we have Cisco. Cisco's solution is called as Kinetic. We have Google, big boy in the room, absolutely. We have Amazon as well, what they're doing there. So everyone's going for the horizontal stack. Come, develop, partner, build, have your DevOps model with us, get your NetOps guys, finally make the DevOps and the NetOps guys talk to each other. My God, oil and water can really mix, right? I mean, this is amazing, power brilliance, right? We covered some of this, so some of this is just going to be history, but 27 years ago, before all of you were born and I was born, we had this classic hourglass model, right? People were writing different protocols, AppleTalks, CLNS, DECnet and all that, till some smart guys in ARPANET figured out, you route everything through IP. So in a way, IoT, for IoT, history is repeating. And mind you, this is not just data technology, this is outdoor technology as well. So digital manufacturing, buildings, grid, especially grid, right? Connected utilities, your gas, water, electricity or heat, everything when it gets measured, and you put smart meters. The erstwhile people doing it, whether it's a Prycol, Honeywell, Rockwell, all of them now, if you want to make them embrace a V6 platform where you can develop apps, it has to be open and extensible. You can't go to them and say, we're sorry, our window size only supports 1 MB, and they'll probably just show you the door and say, walk right back the way you came in, guys, because we only talk in kilobits. We only transmit 10 kilobits per second, and we have 6 million meters installed in North Canada, and we only send a guy on a snowplow when it needs to be investigated. So how are you going to do a DevOps model for that? And most probably, if that smart meter needs an upgrade just before Christmas, thank God, how are you going to upgrade it, right? And with what wireless technology are you going to use, right? So these are some of the questions at each place of the stack where you'll need to be answered. So just putting some terms there so you get a sense, but Bluetooth Energy, BLE is coming in, NFC is coming in, as I told you, 6LoWPN, written by IETF, the same guys who wrote the internet standards. They're going gung-ho and strong. They believe the final and the future of IoT routing protocols is going to rest on this, right? It has to be V6, it has to be low power, it has to be wireless, and most important, it has to be something for which a battery, you can't send someone every day to Hinjawadi just to replace a battery or a cell, if it's battery operated, right? So you have to send someone in 20 years. So that battery dissipation, that kilowatt per hour, those are the things people are testing out now. So it's going back to the dark ages and getting them, all of them, in this room called V6 Open Systems. So a lot of exciting stuff is and churn is happening here. Yeah, different schemas are forcing different approaches as well. So while we had, how many of you heard about COAP, C-O-A-P? Constrained, yeah, okay. So Constrained Open App Protocol, and that's being now largely looked upon for IoT. It's a nice way, that's a nice schema and modeling, whereas a single approach again is not going to fit, right? If it's an OT or an operational technology, you're just trying to do that. You're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It's not going to happen. So again, just to summarize these use cases, whether it's a smart city, and inside a smart city, whether it's a solution for transportation, citizen kiosk, anything you want to do, each will require a different approach, okay? Some low power use cases, just flashing in case you haven't heard, smart metering, or I think the word for that industry word is AMI, Advanced Metering and Instrumentation. Basically means you open your app right now and it tells you your consumption of electricity right now at this stage. So you figured out you left 4 lights and 2 fans and 1 AC on, and you actually switch them off right from here, right? Pretty much explains why Google acquired Nest a couple of years ago, and now everyone wants to get into this home automation space. right? So a lot of concepts around this, and these are some of the industries where it points, where it's very lucrative just to develop and just start selling it. So Amazon is doing it with Fire Stick. You have Alexa of Amazon now. You know, we have the machine learning, the AI, the data learning concepts being inserted. So IoT suddenly looks hot to everyone, obviously, because you know it really kind of broadens your horizon. That's one. It makes you understand a lot of industry verticals. But I think the basic, again, I'll just be very humble here. In my limited experience, I've seen is the value factor often gets missed out. In this race for just dazzling, oh, we can connect you over, Zigbee, we can connect you over LoRaWAN, and on all these aspects, the value factor gets missed out, right? And then suddenly everything gets thrown away on the window. This is for technical consumption. Feel free to have this. Just compare all the technologies, so you get a sense. I am going to jump in the interest of Q&A because I do want to have them. And the slides build out on this, but I wanted to show you this, which talks about, oh, pardon me. Okay, so this is just 1/10 of the standards in IoT, right? Really, I mean, it's so exciting. Pick your choice, pick your corner, pick your place where you want to lose your sleep, and get your bottle of aspirin, because that's what's really driving us crazy. At every stage, there's someone who says, wait a minute, this is the way it should be done, and this is the way it should not be done. And hey, great, welcome to the great chaos. Anyway, so I would say, anyone here who's not heard about S-curves, technology adoption curves, often okay, the S-curves, I mean, they just call it maturity, wide acceleration, then flattening out. So we often kind of look at trends as S-curves. So these are the 3 S-curves. For IoT, people are plotting it in this way, right? So I'm just holding on while we went from the human scale to the machine scale. 2 things are going to propel IoT by a factor of 1000x is what they call it. So that figure of 45 billion or 50 billion objects is already gone now. We have accelerated that. So people are looking at AI and ML now. So this whole bring your own device / depending on if it's a Friday, it's bring your own drink. But data-driven AI and machine learning is going to be the accelerators for IoT. And 2 things help you there, obviously 4G and 5G, which is, I don't know about the other rich part, but India being a data-rich country, we are suddenly now staring at this storm called IoT with ML, IoT with AI. It's a huge thing, my friends. I mean, I'm blown away by how much interest the government has taken here. Whether it's, I belong to a company where we get to now meet all these regulatory guys, and right from Nitin Gadkari. How many of you heard about his Bharat Mala project? I'm just being very, yeah, right? So 3 days before he announced that, he had his EBCT come and visit our campus, and they want a greenfield approach. While they build his highways, get everything sorted out. So women's safety, patrolling, ETC talk collection is just one of the many obvious things, but everything, right? So don't build highways, then put safety on top of it, then put some, smart poles somewhere, then put ambulances, something which anyway nobody uses, and so I was blown away by this vision, and they have this panel of technical experts who actually talk Ruby, who actually talk Python. There are think tanks who are, MTech guys from, most of the reputed universities around the world, and they are the guys who are sitting in this think tank. So it's really mesmerizing and humbling as well. Just giving you that context, right? So again, I have 2 more slides, so pardon me here. Okay, we have 5 minutes. You have to talk about value, right? When you listen, you really have to talk about value. Infrastructure for me or for anyone in IoT is about services. If you are not building something which can be monetized as a service, whatever layer you built on, your client or vendor is going to say 2 words, what then? Which means what happens when the data capacity reaches, what happens when people get it. So look at this poll in Jaipur. So what then, right? So what happens when you put a generation of LED lights by Lutron or Philips or Thomson, which are LED and can be controlled by V6, and then you put sensors. So suddenly the light pole, in addition to light, can help you for traffic navigation, right? So these are all the what thens with just a normal pole, which is now going to be piloted in Nagpur on a 4-kilometer stretch in the center of the city, can do. So 2 light poles can talk and guide you to park 3 cars in between. Possible, happening, working, right? That's a prototype. So just giving, and then you can just build use cases on top of it. By use cases, I mean smart services. Anyone flying via Jaipur on his boarding pass gets a 6-hour ride through the city, just like they do it in Singapore, right? So you can do a smart tourism, and obviously you have to do all this with low energy and being very sensitive to the environment. So it's about the insights. This is the slide which all of us here, right, as DevOps, NetOps, or even IT, have to be very cognizant, right? As I rightly said, the cloud era is ending. One of the things you'll always see is this word called microservices, just to answer your point, right? Microservices at the edge, microservices at the intelligent edge, microservices at the fog, microservices at the cloud. I got 3 minutes? 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so that's one place where you're going to see microservices rule a lot, right? A slice of compute, slice of networking, slice of storage, slice of analytics at each layer. So your application evolution is really going to be leveraging on that, right? Don't be confined to this just because people are demanding it. So if I build up this slide, serverless, virtualization, yes, that's all going to be there. Anyone and everyone who is in function virtualization, whether it's network or application function virtualization, doesn't matter. That's going to be the future now for intelligent IT, which very loosely translates to, as I said, Chanda Kochar, who is the chairman of ICICI Bank here, would have a statement for 12 days in Diwali, a special home loan pricing. I don't need to build 24 brick and mortar offices. I just want IT to be agile, right? So translate that to apps, translate that to workloads, management and network operations, right? It's all going to be on agile methodology. And we are already witnessing that. Every enterprise we talk to talks about this. None of our conversations really even begin with protocols now. It's all about this. So we are seeing this huge hyperscale converged infrastructure talk. People are talking about software-defined storage, everything riding on SDN and FPI. Software-defined networking, centralized computing, intelligence for millions of routers, whether they exist as routers or they exist on servers, controlled from a central location. So it's huge. The pace is huge already. I mean, everyone pretty much knows, this is the future now. So your agile or intelligent IT has to embrace this. The more outwards you go on this Y or this 3-dimensional, the more outwards you are on these circles are the places where you're going to make an impact. Whether you write your 1,000 lines of code, that's where the impact happens. So containers, right, whether it's Dockers, LXCs, that's where the impact is going to happen. Your policies, by policy I mean your example, who talks to whom, who talks on what protocol to whom, who can download, who should be secured, in what way. And last but not least, as I said, from on-prem, which is already gone now, people are looking at this, at the fog. So let me just build this out. Yeah. So this model is now entering the IT model. So whether it's an Arduino or an ARM board, or you have simple drone as a service. If any of you guys want to look at drone as a service and just write an app or partner with a company which does drone as a service, immense use cases, right? Most of our state governments do readouts on Mondays, in case you didn't know, in this country, by flying drones. So there is no someone who shows an Excel worksheet and says 10 kilometers of road got done in the last 2 days. It's a drone which flies and generates half a petabit of file, and that is shared at real time. So data has some value, right? I find these examples really taking us to this. So that's why whether it's a drone or a ship, it doesn't matter. Cool. I have 3 minutes as per this clock, but you're welcome to ask any number of questions. I'm here. Please.
Thanks, Subodh, for an amazing talk. So I have this question regarding the correctness of these devices. At the end, this relates to the first slide, or the initial slide where you said it's into the wild, right? You deploy these devices. How do you ensure the correctness of the data? Because at the end, the value is based on the correctness of the data. So is it a challenge, or what are the steps? I mean, there's no 100% perfect system you can have, but how do you reduce these challenges and the problems?
Okay. Yeah, I think you rightly said there is no correctness, which means there are a lot of options you can have. But a suggested approach, again, I'm just simplifying it, is always divide and conquer, right? Again, work backwards. If these are 25,000 lampposts and these are 1,000 buses data you're capturing, or is this data, to your point, from unstructured sources coming of relevance to a smart city platform? And in that, what are you capturing? If you're just capturing a bus which has parked itself in a bus depot, you don't need to really worry much, right? So I think that decision, what do I capture and closer to the source being the endpoint which has generated the data, becomes a key factor. If you take that first step right, my friend, a lot of things which you write on top of it becomes much easier. So whether it's Ruby on Rails, whether it's Python, whether it's Puppet, whether it's Chef, you can all orchestrate that in SDN now. In fact, as we speak, the network modeling language, which, how many of you heard about RAML and YAML? Yeah, yes, I heard you. Okay, so yeah, YAML has just got an RFC as we speak earlier this year, so yet another modeling language. So it doesn't matter what interface you have, you just model it in Python or Python on Yarn combined. So a lot of stuff is happening there, but that key decision, who's generating the data, where should I store that data, is going to be a key one. Do I have time for just one more question? I just saw one more hand. One question? One question, my friends.
The talk was really engaging.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's why I'm actually having a little difficulty in kind of building a sensible or a more specific question, but I'm sure.
Just say I love IoT. That takes care of it.
Absolutely. I love IoT.
Sorry,
but I'm sure in addition to the security aspects that you spoke about, there will be ethical considerations as well at a micro level where it affects an individual versus at a macro level where it touches complete electricity grids, the way your traffic network works, the way you would kind of maybe automate it. Again, I know we are out of time, maybe one or two thoughts on that?
I would say absolutely yes and yes. At every point, my friend, I think you rightly said it, and I would just love to have a separate session on IoT security or just a one-to-one discussion, but it is so goddamn important. I just cannot, and I think every discussion of any solution in IoT is just meaningless and empty if you just do not factor in security in it. I'm just using security as a very broad concept, but hey, endpoint security, the place you admit, the place you enforce a rule in software, the place you decide out of 500,000 packets, 250,000 admit and then get treated in that way and actually go and trigger that API. So this whole ecosystem, if I may use, and then you have things, human processes and organizations now relying on this data, and God forbid if it's for healthcare and you're sending the wrong packet to the wrong place and the app just says, oh yeah, go ahead and just do that angioplasty, what happens, right? So in the earlier world, servers going down was okay, we just lose our weekend. Now in IoT, this packet's going astray, very humbly say so, it's just the beginning of a huge storm, right? So software, security, remediation, everything that goes into it, right? Before, during, after, I just used a very loose paradigm, and it is not just my company's or Cisco's paradigm, but everyone wants to follow that. And it's a big threat, it's a big open area for everyone to work in, and there's a huge dearth of professionals just in that space. IoT, threat defense and security. If I may wrap up and say, you're welcome to partner. Anytime you feel like if you want to put your stake and just say, I want to be the guy who does microservices for IoT security, go ahead and do that. Start your startup. Come down to California, Bangalore, start with a few guys. It's just one of the best places to be right now. Machine learning and security. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Subodh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.